Welcome back to the Traits of a Champion podcast. My name's Kevin, and I'm here with John, and we're super excited about today's conversation, and you are going to thoroughly enjoy it. So I grew up as an athlete. You grew up as an athlete. And so for all of those that are listening, you can pull so many good leadership and champion mindset principles from athletes. And you had the privilege to sit down with Grayson Miller, punter for the University of Oklahoma. I know you had a blast with that.
Yeah, it was so fun to sit down, and we have a mutual friend, and Ray Griffin, who's a great friend of mine, and so Ray hooked me up with Grayson. You know, one of the things we try to do on this podcast is to try to get you champions in all different areas. We've had some incredible people that are just winning at high levels at different areas. And here's a young man who started off in Division II as a punter, is now in Division I. God gave him a focus, gave him a vision, and he has not lost sight of what God has called him and told him to do by going from University of Central Oklahoma. Whenever I lived in Oklahoma, many of you who grew up there, you'll know it. We used to know it as Central State University, the Broncos, the alma mater of my wife, by the way, where she graduated college. But you know, to go from a Division II like that to Division I is not easy to do, especially in this era that we're in today with the transfer portal. But then, not only that, when you think about, you know, the glamorous position is not the punter. It's just not. It's that. But I'm going to tell you what the coach will not do. Any of these big-time coaches, they will not go to bed worrying about their kicker, their long snapper, and their punter. They refuse to even worry about that. So they want that set, taken care of with champions, so that they don't have to worry about their what we call specialty positions. And Grayson is such a very intelligent, smart young guy, and loves the Lord, great champion, and has a great mindset. His attitude was so infectious. I was so proud of it, just incredibly impressed with not only his focus as a young man, but then just his attitude. Had such a champion's attitude, and it was so great to be able to sit down and talk with him for the length of time that we got.
Absolutely. Anytime you see someone who's a champion in their faith on the field, but then you see who they are off the field. And I know we say it, but it's true. That's what makes a true champion. And sitting down with Grayson and listening to that podcast, it is evident that he is a champion, not just on a football field, but he also is in his life and his personal life. And so for all of those of you that are striving to be champions, because that's what we do around here, we work hard, we focus, we do all these things so that we can be the very best that God's called us to be. You will thoroughly enjoy this conversation and this little bit of a testimony of his story. And you will not only enjoy it, you will pull lots of great truth and principles for your life. So this is a great conversation that you will enjoy with Grayson Miller, punter for the Oklahoma Sooners. Here you go.
All right. Well, Grayson, thank you so much for being here, and it's just an honor to have you, man. I'm a diehard OU fans, and so let me just say to all of my LSU people, don't worry. At the end of the month, we are going to have a huge surprise with literally a legend in LSU. So y'all don't hate on me on Sunday mornings. But they know my heart. My heart, sooner born, sooner bred. When I'm dead, I'll be sooner dead. So,
that's right.
But thank you for being here, and we really enjoy it. So kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and how you got here. We want to hear from you today.
For sure. Well,
take off, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm Grayson Miller. I'm from Edmond, Oklahoma, which is 45 minutes down the street from here. And I'm just a normal kid that happens to be good at kicking a piece of leather. And so, yeah, I'm a punter at the University of Oklahoma is probably one of the notable things about me that people want to know. And I've had a crazy journey getting here. You know, I played a little bit of football and soccer in high school, a little bit of soccer in college, and then switched, and now God has me playing football in the SEC.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's quite a jump, right?
A little bit.
And you started at University of Central Oklahoma, are they Division, what are they?
Division II.
Division II, a great Division II program, great football program, very familiar with them. But then to coming to the University of Oklahoma from a Division II, tell us about that. It's kind of a faith journey for you. Tell us about that.
It was a big jump. So like I was just talking about, it was a really, really cool event. I was at UCO. It was my first year there, and throughout my time there, it was just like I had this feeling that there was something bigger that I was supposed to be doing, right? And there was a time where there was a hot air balloon that landed in the backyard of my mom's house. I was sitting there doing my quiet time on my birthday, and I look out the window, and there's a hot air balloon landing in the backyard, and it looks, red and yellow and orange or whatever, but whenever it falls, there's an OU Sooners logo on the top of it, and I got it on video, and it was pretty crazy. And then pretty soon after, I was having dreams. Like I had 3 dreams where I saw myself at OU doing things that I didn't know about yet, but I was going to get to do. So it was pretty neat journey, but it was a faith one for sure.
There's just sometimes you just have to say, we talk about winning, and that's this whole thing. And one of the greatest wins that you can do in life is just to say, yes, Lord. You don't have to hit me with a ton of bricks, but yes, Lord, I'll definitely do that. So talk to us, Grayson, about, you're a D1 athlete, and you're a very rare bird, because you look at the numbers of kids that play high school football, for instance, all over the country, and in Louisiana, Friday nights are a big deal. In Oklahoma, Friday nights, big deal.
Right.
And so to come now to that next level, whether it be Division III or Division II, Division I, NAIA, is a big deal, because then the numbers get even less. It just gets even less and even gets more funneled down. But then to end up at a D1, but not just a D1, a Power 4 now, but then not just a Power 4, but to end up in an SEC school and a, we would say, a blue blood like the University of Oklahoma is. Right. Tell us about that, and tell us about why that was important, but also, just for people listening, about going for your dreams and kind of shooting for the stars, something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's amazing getting to play in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and then millions watching on TV. It's an experience that I never expected to be a part of. I never expected to have that, and there's something about just like having a dream, talking to God about it, and seeing what His plan is, and then pursuing it with everything you got. Because I don't know, there was always just like this thing that I thought, it was just like, I'm gonna prepare the field and then pray that God sends the rain. And if He does, awesome. But if He doesn't, then then at least we did some work and we got something done. And you got to have faith that He's going to send it, and you'll be surprised what all He does.
Well, He does too. You talk about the part that you have to do. And that's one of the things we talk about. One of the traits is, you can't get away with it. If you want to win in life, you want to win at your marriage, you want to win with your kids, you want to win at your job, you want to win as a D1 athlete, you've got to work your tail off. It takes a lot of hard work. Give us kind of what is a life, a day in the life, the work ethic that it takes, Grayson, to be a Division I athlete?
A lot of early mornings.
Early mornings?
Like even today, we had practice this morning, and it's a voluntary deal, but everybody's there. Usually, like throughout this last little spring semester, I've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning, going to my 6 a.m. workout that really starts at 5:50. We just say 6 because that's the time. But everything, you got to be early, and you got to take care of your body. And I'm getting old. I'm a 5th year, right? And so whenever we show up, I have to go roll out, and I have to stretch, and I have to make sure that I'm prepped and ready to go. So it's not just punt work. There's other things that I got to do to take care of my body and to prepare it. So it's a busy schedule, but it's a lot of fun when it pays off,
Being a D1 athlete's a full-time job, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
And then some, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because I talked to, you look at, a lot of people think, that about hard work is, if I could just do the bare minimum and get by. And I would just say, one of the things we challenge people is, you can get a participation trophy in anything, but if you want to be a champion in it, it's going to take that whole other level of hard work. Yeah. My wife is going to scold me, and I'm going to get in trouble, but a lot of athletes call it embracing the suck. The stinky part of this stinks, but you better learn to embrace hard work. You better learn to get after it. How do you do that? What would you say to people about how do you embrace that it's just part of it? You better learn to make it a good part of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of something that Coach Venables says all the time. He's the head coach at Oklahoma, and he says, if we look at our season like we're climbing a mountain, past the tree line, it's rare air. Like you got to fight to get the air. you know, and not everybody makes it. And so you have to persevere to be the one that wins, you know, and you got to do what it takes to win. You got to do what winning requires in those situations. So it's a lot of just putting your head down and working, even though you don't necessarily feel like it, because the results are based off of how much work you do now, even though it's off season or whatever. Like, there's a lot of things that go into that.
Yeah. I had the privilege of sitting down with and being with Tim Tebow. He came and preached our church and stuff, and Tebow talked about that. And he talked about how at the end of the day that hard work, he said usually, he said it doesn't always, but usually will beat talent every time. And, you know, and that's one of the things we challenge people and about, you know, even in your marriage, you got to work hard at it. In raising your kids, you got to work hard at your job. And I think as a Christian, we're called to that. We're called to be champions and to run our race, not just to compete and not just to get the trophy, but to win it at a high level,
Right.
to receive the prize of the upward calling. And so that hard work is just, it's got to happen. You've got to do it. One of the other things we talk about is, you know, just not quitting. You know, at the end of the day, champions learn to embrace losing, not embrace it that I'm going to put up with it, but just saying it's just a part of life, and you got to get up and you got to go and you don't quit. You ever thought about quitting?
No, but I've almost been cut.
Yeah. Tell us about
to be
that.
honest with you.
Yeah.
Whenever I first got here to Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I come out of the portal as a D2 guy, not super, you know, sought after. I was a 0-star in high school with 0 offers. But I showed up at Oklahoma, and I've always kind of been the underdog. And we're going through our spring training and things like that, and I'm kicking awful. They have me kicking field goals and things like that, and I'm not a field goal kicker. And I was punting bad, I was kicking bad. It was just, everything was not going my way. And then I had an exit meeting with Coach Venables, and he calls me in, he sits me down, he's like, "How'd you feel like your spring went?" I was like, "Not very well, to be honest with you." He goes, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Which is not what you want to hear from your coach,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then we've got these little poker chips, and he basically challenged me. He said, you know, I was kind of advised to get rid of you, and I decided against it. Go prove me right. Good luck. And I was like, "Yes, coach, let's go do it. You have a good rest of your day." And that was tough. It was kind of like a frustrating moment. And I reached out to God. I was in my car one day, and I was just honest with God. I was just talking, and I was like, "Lord, why did you bring me all this way? Stand me up in front of all my friends that are rooting for me, all my family that's rooting for me, and then now it just feels like you pulled the rug out from under me. Like, what are we doing all this for?" And so in a way, that was the closest I've ever felt to quitting. But it was just like, I was really frustrated, and then he just kept working, you know? And he kept giving me a desire to go do things and to get better, and he kept coaching me up. And so it was like, it was really, really cool. I got to see him work miracles through all of it, even throughout my frustration. But I learned that being honest with him goes a really, really long way when you're in a rough spot.
Man, I love that, Grayson, because, you know, you think about, you know, your head coach, you know, the guy, and looks at you and says, "Nah, I'm gonna give you another shot." Man, that says a lot about his character, but it says a lot about your character as well, because it would have been easy to quit and to walk away from that. But one of the things we say is, you know, that you know, champions don't quit. At the end of the day, we just don't quit, because you can't do that. You can't quit on your marriage. You can't quit on all those things. You know, our first trait that we talk about a lot about, and I've talked to literally some of the greatest business minds and some of the greatest athletes and coaches, and they'll all say, you know, if you're going to be a champion, all champions have a ridiculous ability to focus. Michael Jordan, the GOAT, was so able to focus his mind that it was just, he was unbeatable, they say. Talk to us about that, because you talked about, you had your eyes, you saw something that, you know, that hadn't happened yet, but yet you were able to stay focused on that. Why is that important? And kind of tell us about that. Tell us how you do that.
Well, I think it's hugely important. Like, if you don't believe that God has you doing something for a reason, there's no backbone to it, right? Like, you can go out and do it and mess around, and it's fun. But like, if you don't truly believe that God has you doing something and you're not seeking Him about it, then there's no point in, like, it's not going to go very far, right? And so having that belief is extremely important to me, or I wouldn't be here, you know? I don't think that I could have started playing soccer in the desert in Lubbock, you know, at a D2 level, and wound up in the SEC unless God had done something about it. And so there's a certain focus that comes with that, like every single day when I take the field at practice, like I treat it like it's game day, and I see the field and I pretend like I'm playing against Georgia, and I try and see all 100,000 people that are around me, and every single rep that I kick the ball, it's like that's a game rep, so there's a certain level to it where it's just like you have to believe that you're there for a purpose, and then you have to work as hard as you possibly can to make the things that need to happen.
Yeah, I like to say, Grayson, that you can't, at some point you've got to be able to see and to set your focus beyond, what it is that, that it's a vision, here's what's out there and here's what I'm shooting for, because that at the end of the day, that's what separates champions from chumps in a lot of ways, is that you can't get distracted. You've got to stay focused on the main cause and the main thing with that. One of the things I love about great people who accomplish great things is that they understand the power of influence and what that means. And so you get little kids coming up to you for your autograph and all that good stuff, right? It's kind of a bizarre deal. Yeah. But tell us about that. Tell us about how important your influence is and how serious you are about that, about the influence that you have.
Yeah, so that's been probably one of the biggest things about switching schools is like my level of influence is just like grown a lot. I get to talk on podcasts like this, and I get to go speak at churches, and I don't know, I really enjoy doing those things, especially with the youth. And so it's just like, if God has put me in this spot and he's placed me here for a reason, and it's an awfully big stage, and he's the one holding me up, then while I'm up, I need to be able to turn around and show people who's holding me up anyways, and I think it's very important that we do that with the platform that we're given, because it's only provided by God, We're nothing without him holding us there.
Yeah. So. And influence, when you get old like me, Grayson, one of the things you'll realize is that you're not going to leave a lot behind, but one of the things you can leave behind is a lot of influence in the lives that you influence. And that's why we do this podcast, is to try to influence you folks that are tuning in, is to say, hey, you can be a champion. You can be what God's called you to be. Go for it. Quit settling for a participation trophy. Don't settle for an average marriage. Don't settle for average. Man, go for it. Go for the win. And then understand with that comes tremendous influence, which is, again, we talk about guys like Tebow and some of these other guys. There's so many out there now, and I love it to see these different athletes that use the platform that God's given them for the glory of God and for the good, to say, you know what, you give it to me and I'm going to use it for your influence in that. Obviously, faith is a big deal to you. Tell us about your journey, how you came to know Christ, and tell us a little bit about that.
For sure, yeah. So I grew up in the church. I gave my life to Jesus when I was in third grade. Like, I grew up that way. But, it was a slow sanctification process. Throughout middle school, throughout early high school, I wasn't doing the things that the Lord wanted me to do, and I wasn't walking very closely with him, right? And so whenever I got into early high school, it was like, I'm going to make this New Year's resolution. I'm going to pray once a day, just once a day. And that was my thing. That's what I was going to do. And so I started doing that, and, you start seeking God, and it's pretty cool what he'll reveal to you. And so I started to do that, and it was like, if I'm going to pray at night, I may as well pray in the morning too. And so that it was like twice a day, and then we're praying at lunch just cause. And then, we're reading the verse of the day that's on the Bible app, and then it's turning into a whole parable per day, and then a chapter per day. And that all that nonsense just goes to say, like, it's a process. Like, you start little and it winds up becoming a whole thing, because now it's like I've read the Bible all the way through, and it's been really cool. I've learned so many things, but it's just like, when you start small, God does really, really big things over time. And so it's been cool. I've been convicted about sins, and God has completely removed them from my life, and it's really cool. And there's always things that I'm working on.
Love that, and I love the sanctification process. It is a process, and it's one of those. And for those of you tuning in, Grayson, we reach a lot of folks that that really aren't into church and religion, and that we try. We're glad you're listening, and we just say, hey, give the Lord a chance. But sanctification is simply, when you become a Christian, it's the process of God making us more like we should be in Christ and less like ourselves. And the growth that we talk about, you hear that a lot with that. So in your mind, what does winning look like in your Christian walk? So you said you have daily quiet time. That's awesome. Right. But what does that look like for you? What does it mean to win if I say, you know what does winning in Christ look like for Grayson Miller?
For Grayson Miller, there's different things that winning in Christ means. You know, like there's the small wins, like writing down my prayers and having my quiet time. Like, you know, like it's a foundational thing that has to get done, you know, but it's still a win. It's something that's really good. And then there's other wins, like, you know, sharing my faith with my teammates, talking about the Bible at breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you know, like things like that. Those are other wins. And then there's things like speaking at churches. That's another huge win. Like I just got to go to Chickasha, which is a small town in Oklahoma. And I got to talk to their youth group, and it was like middle school, high school kids, and it was really cool, like hanging out with those kids, playing pool, things like that. Like that was a win in and of itself. And then there's other things like using my social media and the big stage that I'm on during the fall, you know, things like that to share what God has done in my life. And so all of those things are wins. I don't think that there's anything that's just like that is the only way to win with Christ, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And I love the shout out to the Chickasha Chicks of all things.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was actually a graduate, born and raised in Chickasha, so I know it well down there. So you're talking, you know, about your faith and sharing it, you know, in different platforms that you get. I love studying generations, and I love to see what God is doing in the different, you know, age groups. And I've talked with literally pastors all over the world, and God's given me some great networks of guys, and we're of the deep conviction that there's a move of God happening right now, that's happening not just in Protestant churches, it's happening across the board in Catholics and all kinds of Orthodox, and we're just seeing Gen Z and Gen Alpha come back to faith, and it being more of we'd call it a move of God, but what some folks may just see it as, you know, it's more in vogue now. Do you see that happen? Do you see your generation more interested in spiritual things? Do you see that happening, you know, with your teammates and just different places?
For sure. I mean, since I've been to school, I just started praying that God would work in the hearts of my teammates and that I'd have the opportunity to share with them. One of the big things that I was into was Luke chapter 10, verse 2. It talks about how the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly that God sends more workers into the field, right? And so I started saying that when I first got to college. And throughout my time, I've gotten to see like six of my teammates get saved. Whether it was, there was one at LCU, and then there were like 5 at UCO, and then I've been here. And so it's like, I'm still working here. The work's not done. And all those things, they took years, you know? It wasn't just like, there was only like 2 of them that were pretty quick. Yeah. But it's cool. Like God does work whenever you start praying, and I think it's cool that our generation's kind of about that.
I was reading an article recently about that, you know, up at Ohio State University, they had an incredible service and a great move of God. I know that it sure seems that what's happening in our softball team, there seems to be a great move of God. And then I was reading recently that there was a concert and just broke into an incredible worship event and a prayer event at the Noble Center. And I was it was kind of vague, but they had mentioned it enough. Do you see God moving on campus? Do you see it happening? Tell us about that, because I love seeing moves of God, and it just seems like campuses it just seems like God is just falling on a lot of these campuses.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Our campus has a lot of really rich, like, Christian organizations where like-minded people can come and join and do things together. But there's all kinds of them, and it's really cool whenever you start seeing your teammates at events like that. Like one of them, they meet at like 9 p.m. on Tuesdays, which is way past my bedtime, so I don't go super often, to be honest with you. But like Crossover is one of them, and that's the one that I was just talking about. I see my teammates show up to that stuff, yeah. And the other day I went and they baptized 41 people, and it was just like, it's really cool.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like campuses are rich with opportunities and things like that, and even like one of the girls I've been hanging out with lately, her name's Jay-Z, but she shows up to this thing called Crew, and they send students all the way to Thailand, and they go have revivals there for like 8 weeks. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing. I love hearing that stuff, and just to see the impact. We know the power of God unto salvation. Mm-hmm. To the world, the cross is foolishness, but to us, it is the power of God.
Right.
That not only changed my life, but changed your life, and will change anybody listening's life. and just how important that is. And so I just sense a real move of God happening. We see it in churches, we see it on, and I love seeing it on these college campuses there. Tell us some people, some champions in your life that have influenced you. Talk about some men, some women who have influenced your life in a powerful way.
Man, the first one's easily my mom. Like, she prays through the walls every time I'm home. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, throughout my whole journey, she's been there. You know, whenever I was thinking about switching sports and going to football instead of playing soccer in Lubbock, I came home for Thanksgiving and we talked about it and we prayed about it. And then, 3-4 weeks later, I'm having a tryout at UCO, things like that. And so throughout this whole time, she's been praying for me. My grandma's been praying for me. And I've had some amazing coaches, like some of my high school coaches especially. I went to Deer Creek High School, Creek runs deep. Yeah. And some of my high school coaches, they gave me some really, really solid advice that has stuck with me forever. And even Coach Brown is one of them. His name's Alston Brown. And he was one of my football coaches. But I was going to quit football in high school. I forgot to say that when we talked about quitting, but I was going to quit. Like, I was going to stick it to my coach because I was frustrated. I had been stuck behind a guy that was 1 year older than me for 3 straight years, and he was like, "You're not going to quit, man. Like, you're just not." And he prayed with me, and he helped me, and he guided me, and I wound up not quitting. And my high school highlights were what got me to UCO, and I'm here now. So even those little things, like coaches looking out for me, it's been really cool. That's how I wound up where I am.
Yeah. What would you just literally say to not just young people, but all kinds of people that are tuning in to say, you know what, I want to win. I believe in the 5 traits or whatever, or anything. I mean, these aren't just written in concrete. It's just understanding that there's something different about champions, and it's a mindset for one. But what would you say is one of the key things that it takes to win? Obviously, practically, outside of Christ or in Christ, but what is it that they can do? Their extra work. What is it that you would say is super important that someone has taught you or you learned for as a D1 athlete?
Man, God wants to do everything with you, right? Like, punting is my craft. It's what I love to do. And when I was at UCO, I knew I wanted to be at OU, but I wasn't good enough to get there. And so one night, I was honest with God. I was sitting in my room and I said, "Lord, I know where you want me, and I know I'm not good enough to be there. I don't have like a kicking coach to teach me and work with me on a daily basis." And I said, "Lord, you know an awful lot about me, and I'm sure you know everything there is to know about punting. Would you coach me? Would you coach me?" And every single day, I'd stick around after practice at UCO, and I'd get these feelings like, maybe I ought to try this today. And I'd be like, "Lord, teach me these new things." And I'd get that feeling, and then I'd try it out and be like, maybe you need to change your drop. Maybe you need to change your swing. And I'd try it, and I'd hit a nuke. And it was like, okay, that's today's kicking lesson. Like, that's what we're going to work with. And it's turned into the technique that I use today. Like, I punt different than most punters. People that are watching probably don't care about punting technique, but mine is completely different than everybody else's. And it's because God has made it into what it is. And so my biggest piece of advice is God wants to do everything with you. Like, if you have something that you really like doing, ask him to be a part of it, and you'll see a lot of fruit.
You see a lot of fruit from that. I love that. And I love the, just the aspect of saying, hey, I just need to get better. And, that's what, it fascinates me about, great winners and great champions. And whether it be, we have a business, we have military guys, a lot of people on this podcast, and they all say the same thing. It's just, it's just a mindset to say, I've never arrived. I've got to get better. I've got to, I can't take for granted my marriage. I've got to be intentional at work, and I've got to, my Christian walk, everything, I've got to have a mindset to get better. Well, Grayson, thank you, man. Thank you, and God bless you, man. We're going to be rooting for you in such a big way and pulling for you, because we're super excited about that. And our guests, folks listening, not even if they're Oklahoma fans, because we have a lot that watch that aren't Oklahoma fans, but they're going to be rooting for you because your heart, man, it's just the real deal. And so it'd be fun to watch and to see it going. How do you feel about the upcoming season? You feel excited about it?
I'm pumped. I I think we've got a really good roster, and I think we could really go do something cool. We've got great coaches, and it's just like, it's exciting. It's my last ride. I want to go do something.
Yeah.
You know?
And what team number is this? It's Oklahoma. We talk about team number. What team number?
132.
Team 132.
Team 132.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan, and I love Coach V, and would just appreciate him. And I don't know him. I've never met, but I just appreciate his stand and his desire to see you guys be champions, not just on the field, but also off the field.
Yep.
I love soul mission and all that is about, as far as what I understand about anything, but I just love it and love just, excellence. Excellence is and that's what I love about D1 sports, especially in the SEC, is excellence is the word. It's what everybody's shooting for, is excellence and championships. And I think we as folks that are watching or thinking about it, say, well, I'm never going to play D1 sports. I'm never going to be a punter at the University of Oklahoma. But you also have a chance to be a champion in whatever God's called you to do in your lane. And you're not called to run your race, not called to run my race. You're called to run their race. And God wants you to run it in such a way that you can win and win the prize and of the upward calling that God has for you. And so, man, thank you. Thank you for how you're winning and how God's using you. And, man, just keep going, brother. We're super excited and can't wait to watch the season, obviously as a fan of football, but also as a fan of yours now. And so I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Traits of a Champion podcast, helping you pursue the wins in life. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe. You can also follow along with us on Facebook, Instagram, or watch our episodes on YouTube.